stopped at security. Fun. And my bag had to be searched. And my brain was going, don't take away my knitting needles, don't take away my knitting needles, don't take away my knitting needles, please don't take my knitting needles, please don't take my knitting needles. And the security guard had gone through and scanned it and were putting bits and pieces out. And I nearly just walked out and what I wanted to do was reach over, pull out my knitting bag and say, there you go, there's the culprit. But I didn't. And she pulled out my scissors and sort of looked at them and goes, yeah, they're fine. So that's stress for nothing. But it's the first time I have ever had any issues with my knitting kit. Ever. Never been stopped before, had my bag separately searched. There was a particularly obnoxious passenger on there who was complaining about being late and wanting to be offloaded, and the assistant had to try and explain to him that if he was offloaded, that meant they'd have to get his bags out and everybody else would be delayed. And then he decided he didn't want to be offloaded after all. As she was doing her talk, the flight hostess had a thing about, please all respect us, it's not our fault that we've had delays, we're respecting you, it'd be, really nice to respect us, this is something that happens all the time in aviation. And me and the guy next to me knew why she was saying this, for the benefit of the obnoxious passenger at the other side of the aisle, and we basically laughed the whole way through the security flight, the security demonstration. And when one of us sort of stopped giggling, the other one started, and when they stopped, it was just very, very funny. The two of us, never met before, just giggling our way through the security at the announcement for the benefit of this really obnoxious passenger who probably didn't even realise it was for him.
Good morning. There's a reason why I'm drinking Pepsi from a beer can. Last night, there was a bit of a yell from the kitchen. James had managed to nick a can of Pepsi accidentally with his toolbox, and it started to spout and gush and spill all over the floor. So he managed to salvage most of it into a glass and told me that I needed to drink it. Now, as it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock last night, I was not going to be drinking caffeine that close to bedtime. So I rinsed out one of the beer cans that we had been drinking from, or I'd been drinking from last night, and just put the Pepsi in there overnight in the fridge. So now I have a can of chilled Pepsi from a beer can. Oh yes, so it's Monday. No idea what a Monday is going to bring. To be honest, at the moment I don't feel I know very much. The only thing I do know is that trying to record yourself sewing by shoving the camera tripod or the phone tripod down your bra is not something I would recommend. So yesterday, no. If there was a thought process there, goodness only knows what it was. However, on the plus side, mending on James's shirt is now finished. Last night I had my hair in the plaits, and I was going to tie my hair back in a ponytail to do the recording this morning, but actually I thought the whole frizzy thing was very, was it 80s, 90s? I can't remember. There was one decade, very definitely a decade, where everybody seemed to have crimped hair and would sleep with the hair in wet plaits, and it would all look big and frizzy the following morning. I want to say the 80s. It feels more of an 80s thing than a 90s thing. Oh, that's slightly flat. No. Maybe pre-Raphaelite? Could I be a red-headed pre-Raphaelite beauty? This string of random unconnected thoughts is sponsored by Monday Morning. Important question for the day. What's the Channel 5 movie? It says today's Channel 5 movie, Fear Bay. A woman develops a relationship with a handsome private detective. Of course he's going to be a handsome private detective. She's not going to develop a relationship with somebody who's fat, overweight and smells of beer. She deals with a stalker, not realising the detective has become her deadly avenging angel. So we've just had some news which I find massively, massively exciting. That the European Jamboree that was due to happen this year, in 2020, is now postponed until 2021. So there are going to be questions as to what happens to the girls who are old enough for this year but will be too old for next year. In the same way, there will be girls who are too young for this year but will be absolutely the right age for next year. That is all information which I'm sure will come out from the organisers over the next few weeks and few months. But the practical upshot is that we still get to take away our girls, that all of the work we've done so far is still, we're still working for an aim. It hasn't been wasted. The Jamboree hasn't been cancelled. And we are still able to go and give the girls an experience of a lifetime. And that's just massively, massively exciting. Maybe, but I've done it before, and yeah, I can understand that. But actually sitting and having breakfast with your teddy bear and no other humans, and actually giving your teddy bear food to eat, that's a bit disturbing. Back in the spare room again, and whilst it's not the most inspiring background, it is the room that has light at this time. It's about 6 o'clock now. I've just been on the phone to a friend of mine who lives in America. He's a scouting friend. He was my boss at the Jamboree last year. I've known him since 2011, and every time we talk to each other on the phone, we laugh. I make him laugh, he makes me laugh. So it's always good. He's always a lovely person to talk to. And yes, generally it's the course of our phone calls is always fairly similar. It's kind of an update of what's going on in respecting scouting and guiding organisations. And then it usually ends up in a dissection of everything that's wrong with the politics of both America and the UK, sometimes including the politics and the practices of the Boy Scouts of America, of which I am not a big fan. Don't need to go into all of the details why, but from my visit last year and staying on a BSA campsite, there are things within BSA that I do not feel comfortable with, don't support, and did not make me happy. Kind of, I would say, scarred me. That might be a little bit over dramatic, but it definitely left an impression, and not in a good way. However, so we've done that. James has spent some time this morning fitting a new printer. When I say new printer, it's an old printer that has been brought back to use by a new cartridge, because the old one wasn't working properly. So that's done. And he came up to me and said, I don't know the last time we used this printer, but I found this in the scanner bed. And he showed me this. It's a pattern for Blackberry Delight, which was from a magazine, Let's Knit. It's from Let's Knit, and it was from sometime in 2015. And I rushed out, I bought the yarn for it. Now, the pattern calls for 2 balls of Louisa Harding Amitola yarn. For some reason, I have 3. From memory, pulling out this bag, this one here, that nice top sparkly one, was a pattern for wrist warmers. So I believe that I'd bought this and one of these to make wrist warmers with, and actually looking at them in this light, I'm not sure it's the best match. But I don't know if I'm now going to do that or not, or whether I'm going to use this for something else and then these 3 balls of yarn for something. I don't know how it's going to work out. So that's that. I've got more balls than was actually needed for the project. But also, what I didn't realise is that if you look at the pattern, there's the stripy bit here, and then there's the lacy bit underneath. I didn't pay any attention to that. So I only have the yarn for the stripy bit. I don't have the yarn for the lacy bit at the bottom. And even better, which sort of fits really, that the pattern, I thought I had the whole pattern, but if you look, it gives you the instructions for the lace edging, and the only instructions I have are cut yarn A and change to yarn B. Row 1, knit to the end, removing all the markers. And that's it. I don't actually have the pattern which tells you how to do the lace bit. I might have it in one of my boxes, I don't know. So that, blast from the past, and although I'd been keeping it and keeping the yarn because I wanted to knit the pattern, actually I'm not sure that's now going to happen. So that's that. That is one of my dives into deep stash. I didn't get that right the first time. So that's that. The other one, which is not as deep stash, is this one. It's Easy Knits 1. So I had a dream a couple of nights ago about knitting and not having enough knitting in my life, or I interpret it as not having enough knitting in my life. Louise Tilbrook, who hosts the Everyday Knitter Facebook group, is hosting a knit along starting today, which she is calling the Stay at Home Cal. For that, she has put all of her patterns, I think it's all of her patterns, on Ravelry for half price, with the exception of the Fuss Free Festival shawl, which is free. And I had dug out this one to take part in it. So as I was having knitting related dreams the other day, I interpreted that as not having enough knitting in my life. So I'm going to try and rectify that. Now this is Easy Knits Plus. It's a sock yarn, a nicely brightly coloured sock yarn. The colourway Cockatoo, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. 425 metres. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's enough for the shawl. So I bought this at Unravel in 2018, their 10th year. And I bought it because it was gorgeous, lovely, bright shades. Now, if you remember and have been following these things, last summer was the big furore with Supplementician and the poem he published, and the reaction to that from people who felt that he was tone policing, and his reaction to them, and so on and so forth. And it was a big thing last year. Honestly, I'm not keen on rehashing one of the details because quite a lot of people have discussed them. But I was very, very unimpressed when, I can't remember when it came out, but hearing that he had been to both the Knitting and Crochet Guild and had got aggressive with a woman who had tried to talk to him then, and I can't even remember which yarn festival it was, where he got aggressive with one of the other vendors there. My personal opinion, if he was well enough to go to work, then he was well enough to take responsibility for his behaviour. And him saying, oh, well, I can't take responsibility for my behaviour because I had mental health issues, is throwing everybody else under the bus. Everybody else who has mental health issues have just been thrown under the bus by that. Just my opinion. Anyway, I know that John Dunballam from Easy Knitter is a friend of Nathan Sockmatician's. I'm pretty sure that Nathan has said in the past that he's helped do vending for John Dunballam. And so I was really disappointed that John Dunballam made absolutely no reference to this whatsoever. I would really have appreciated him saying something. Now, given that they are friends, I think it is perfectly reasonable for him to say, I know this person is my friend, and, acknowledge the friendship. But criticism, and particularly constructive criticism, is much better from friends, the people that know you, rather than random strangers on the internet. So I am really, really disappointed in John Dunballam that there wasn't anything along the lines of, yes, Nathan is my friend, but I can't approve of his actions, or I can't stand by his actions, or I don't condone his actions, or anything like that. And as a result, I have decided that I don't want to buy Easy Knitter stuff again. Doesn't matter how nice they are, that's just a decision I have made for me. But I still have this yarn in my stash, and I thought, well, actually, now might be a good time to put it out. That, I'm trying to... There are lots of discussions that I've heard from people who have had yarn from businesses or companies who have then fallen out of favour or have behaved in a way that individual knitters don't support. And the question always is, what do you do with the yarn you've bought from such and such a company if you no longer support that company? Do you sell it? Do you give it away? Do you try and make something good out of it? What do you do? And in this particular case, I'm trying to make something good out of it. So rather than look at it and go, nah, this is what I think of the owner of the company, I'm going to knit with it and say, this is what I did to keep the country safe. This is what I did to try and stay at home and stay out of other people's way and flatten the curve. And this is my positive contribution that I can make to the country and the world that we are living in at this present time. And the fact that it's multicoloured and kind of nice and bright and festivally just makes it better, really. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. I think it's a striped yarn, so I presume on the shawl it will be one of these ones where you have thick stripes one end and then thinner the other. But it will be a nice fun thing to try and find out. So that is my knitting plan for today, tomorrow, this week, however long it takes. That was a lot. That was a lot longer and quite a lot more philosophical than I was expecting. That was a lot longer and a lot more philosophical than I was expecting. One day I suspect I'm going to take a video of my bathroom windowsill. What a day to be alive. The Jamboree has not been cancelled, it's postponed. We have an answer to that question, and all sorts of other questions are now coming out of the woodwork, and that's fine, and that's just what's going to happen, and I'm really very pleased that I am not part of having to make any of the decision process. The other thing I wanted to do in 2021, I can't remember if I talked about this or not, or whether it was just something that I thought about. No, I mustn't do that. Ugh. So I can't remember if I talked about this or not, but over the weekend, all 8 of us leaders were sent an email asking if we were still going to carry on or prepared to carry on with the Jamboree in 2021 if the Jamboree was going to be postponed. And there were other things I wanted to do in summer 2021. Done it again. It seems that I may be able to do both things. I don't know. I need to look at the logistics and stuff, but that's that. Did I say? Yes, I did say a whole load of questions have come tumbling out of the woodwork. Had a chat with my friend Larry. Amongst other things, he was telling me that his Baha'i community, where he lives, are now having meetups via Zoom, but there is an election that has to happen for members of the board or an elected group, an elected committee, and the elections have to happen by such and such a point. So they're doing a paper ballot. So I was just reflecting on high tech and low tech all combined to resolve the problems that we're currently faced with. And this evening's news is that Boris Johnson is in hospital and has gone into intensive care, and suddenly Twitter loves him. Everybody on Twitter seems to love him and think that he's a good leader. Good night.